As we begin to look at section 6.3, the title of the section is called Standard Form. What I want to emphasize here is our standard form is ax plus by equals c. As we begin to look at this form, I want to reflect back to our form that we talked about in our first two sections. We talked about the idea of slope-intercept form, and that equation was y equals mx plus b, where m was the slope and b was the y-intercept. So this is an important equation when we're graphing, but standard form is an excellent equation to use to find x-intercepts and y-intercepts and where the line crosses the x or y axis. So over here to the right, I've drawn an axis, and then I've drawn a line going up on the axis. And these 2 points right here, where the line crosses the x and y axis, are the exact those. It's the x-axis is the x-intercept. And then the y-axis, this lower one, is the y-intercept. And I'm just going to approximate this. This looks to be about 0, -1. And this top one looks to be about 2, 0. So just as a review from the other day, we are going up 1 and over 2. So the slope would be 1/2, the rise over the run. Today we're going to talk about the x and y intercepts. And to do that, we're going to find where y equals 0 or x equals 0 to find those two intercepts. Remember, we're always going to write our points as our answers as x, 0 or 0, y. So first let's look at our x and y intercepts of this first problem. We have 2x minus 3y equals 12. I'm going to write that a little bit bigger because we're going to use a method that we call the cover-up method to find our x and y intercepts. We're going to divide our workspace into two different sections, and then we're going to consider what if x equals 0. If x equals 0, effectively 2 times 0 is going to drop out. And so I'm going to cover this up, leaving me an equation of -3y equals 12. I now take that equation and I'm going to solve it for y by dividing both sides by -3. That gives me a value of y equals -4. Now, our point therefore is 0 from the x equals 0, -4. And I plot that on my graph right about there. Now my second consideration I want to look at has to do with the idea, what if y equals 0? Well, if y equals 0, then we're going to cover up the other portion of the problem. So now I'm covering up the y value. That leaves me 2x equals 12 for my equation. Very simply, I'm going to solve that 2x equals 12 by dividing both sides by 2, and I get x equals 6. This gives me a point of 6, 0. The 6 coming from here, and the 0 on the y coming from there. And now I graph 6, 0 for my second point, and I take my straight edge. I'm going to draw my line, remembering to make sure we have a line extending through the entire graph with arrows on both ends. So here we have the x-intercept up here and the y-intercept down here, realizing they are both points and need to be written as points. Our second example, we're going to do a similar problem. And once again, I'm going to write this a little bit larger so we can use that cover-up method to work it out. Splitting my workspace into two areas, I'm going to say, first, what if x equals 0? Well, if x equals 0, we're going to cover up that 4x, which is going to leave us 2y equals 8. To solve this, I divide both sides by 2. That leaves me with y equals 4, giving me the point 0, 4. I graph this on my graph. That is the y-intercept. We'll come back to drawing the line in a little bit. Second, we consider what if y equals 0? Well, if y equals 0, we're going to cover up the value of y. That leaves us with 4x equals 8. And I can solve this equation very simply by dividing both sides by 4. This gives me a value of x equals 2 and a point 2, 0. So I graph my other point 2, 0. I'm going to draw my line, put my arrows at both ends. That's my x-intercept. And there I have my equation and my graph based on my 2 points that I've done. Now very quickly, as we review these ideas, we look back at our top one. This means we go up 4 and over 6. As a review, that's a slope of 4 over 6, or 2/3. On our bottom equation, we go down 4 and over 2. That's a slope of negative 4 over 2, or negative 2 over 1. So our lower equation has a downward slope, or a negative. Our upper equation has a positive slope, or 2/3.